I never thought my life would change so much on a regular Monday morning. The alarm clock buzzed at 6 a.m., just like it always did. I groaned, slapped the snooze button, and pulled the blanket over my head. 5 more minutes wouldn't hurt, I thought. But those 5 minutes passed too quickly. I dragged myself out of bed, showered, and dressed in the same old suit and tie. Breakfast was a rushed affair, a piece of toast and a cup of instant coffee. I barely tasted it as I gulped it down, already thinking about the endless tasks waiting for me at the office. My name is Alex, and for the past 10 years, I've been working at a small insurance company. It wasn't a bad job, but it wasn't exciting either. Every day felt like I was just going through the motions, and each week blurred into the next. That day, as I walked to my car, I noticed a letter sticking out of my mailbox. It was unusual since I rarely received personal mail. Curious, I pulled it out and saw the return address: Jamie Walker. My heart skipped a beat. Jamie was my best friend from high school, but we hadn't spoken in years. I quickly stuffed the letter into my bag and drove to work, my mind racing with thoughts about Jamie. What could he want after all this time? At the office, I tried to focus on my work, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the letter. Finally, during my lunch break, I took it out and opened it. The letter was brief but powerful. Dear Alex, I hope this letter finds you well. I've missed our friendship and the good times we had. I've moved to a small town by the coast and started a new life. It's beautiful here and I think you would love it. If you ever feel like a change, come visit me. I'd love to catch up. Best, Jamie. I read the letter twice, then a third time. A new life, a beautiful town by the coast. The idea seemed both crazy and wonderful at the same time. Hey, Alex? Earth to Alex. My coworker, Sarah, waved her hand in front of my face. Oh, sorry, Sarah. I was just thinking about something, I said, folding the letter and putting it back in my bag. Must be something important, she said, raising an eyebrow. Yet, you could say that. That evening, I couldn't get Jamie's letter out of my mind. I sat on my couch, staring at the television without really watching it. The idea of starting over was both terrifying and exciting. I thought about my daily routine, the dullness of my job, and the lack of real joy in my life. I decided to call Jamie. Hello. Jamie's voice sounded the same as it did all those years ago, warm and full of life. Jamie, it's Alex, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Alex, it's so good to hear from you. Did you get my letter? I did. It caught me off guard, to be honest. I figured it might, so what do you think? Want to come visit? I hesitated for a moment. I think I do. I need a change, Jamie. My life here. It's just not what I want anymore. Then come on over. You won't regret it. We have a guest room, and you can stay as long as you'd like. I'll start making plans, I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate it. Anytime, Alex. I can't wait to see you. After we hung up, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in years. This could be the turning point I needed. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. I handed in my resignation at work, packed up my apartment, and said goodbye to a few friends. Everyone was surprised by my sudden decision, but they wished me well. On the morning I was set to leave, I took one last look around my apartment. It had been my home for a decade, but now it felt more like a prison. With a deep breath, I grabbed my bags and headed out the door. As I drove towards the coast, the city slowly gave way to open fields and then to the vast, blue ocean. The air smelled different, cleaner, fresher. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly alive. When I finally arrived at Jamie's house, he was waiting outside with a big smile on his face. Alex, you made it, he exclaimed, pulling me into a bear hug. I made it, I said, smiling back. Thanks for inviting me, Jamie. I think this is exactly what I needed. Welcome to your new life, Alex, Jamie said, clapping me on the back. Let's make a good one. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. This was the turning point I had been waiting for. Leaving the city behind was both exhilarating and terrifying. As I drove along the winding coastal road, I couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. The open road ahead symbolized endless possibilities, and for the first time in years, I felt a spark of adventure. My thoughts wandered back to my old life, the predictable routines, the 9 to 5 job, and the gray cubicles. It felt like I was shedding an old skin and stepping into a world of color and light. But with that excitement came a nagging worry. What if this didn't work out? What if I made a terrible mistake? Stop overthinking, Alex, I muttered to myself. Just take it one day at a time. After hours of driving, I decided to take a break. I pulled into a small roadside diner, the kind with checkered tablecloths and a friendly waitress who knows everyone's name. The sign outside read Maggie's Diner. I walked in, the bell above the door jingling as I entered. Take a seat anywhere you like, hon, the waitress called out from behind the counter. I chose a booth by the window and glanced at the menu. It was full of classic comfort food, burgers, fries, and milkshakes. I ordered a cheeseburger and a cup of coffee. As I waited for my food, I noticed a man sitting at the counter, reading a newspaper. He looked up and caught my eye. Not from around here, are you? He asked with a friendly smile. No, just passing through, I replied. I'm heading to a small town by the coast. Ah, new beginnings, he asked, folding his newspaper. Something like that, I said, nodding. I needed a change. Good for you. Name's Bill, by the way. Nice to meet you, Bill. I'm Alex. Bill smiled and raised his coffee cup in a toast. To new beginnings, Alex. They can be tough, but they're worth it. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. My food arrived and I ate quickly, eager to get back on the road. The burger was delicious and the coffee was strong, just what I needed. Back in the car, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The miles flew by, and soon I was nearing the small town Jamie had written about. The scenery changed from rolling hills to a breathtaking view of the ocean. The water sparkled under the afternoon sun, and I couldn't help but smile. I reached Jamie's house just as the sun was beginning to set. He was outside, painting a wooden fence. Hey, Alex. Perfect timing. Jamie called out, waving his paintbrush. Hey, Jamie. Need some help with that? I asked, stepping out of the car. Sure, why not? But first, let's get you settled in. How was the drive? Long but worth it, I said, looking around. This place is beautiful. Jamie grinned. I knew you'd like it. Come on, I'll show you to your room. He led me inside, and I was struck by how cozy and welcoming the house felt. Jamie had done a great job making it a home. This is your room, Jamie said, opening a door to a bright, airy bedroom. Make yourself comfortable. Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate this. Any time, Alex. Now let's get that fence finished before it gets dark. We spent the next hour painting the fence, chatting about old times, and catching up on each other's lives. It felt good to be doing something physical, something real. As we worked, a neighbor walked by and waved. Hey, Jamie, who's your friend? She called out. This is Alex, an old friend from high school. He's going to be staying with me for a while. Jamie replied. Welcome to the neighborhood, Alex, she said with a smile. I'm Sarah. If you need anything, just let me know. Thanks, Sarah. Nice to meet you, I said, feeling a sense of warmth and community that I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the day. It was the first step into uncharted territory, and though the future was uncertain, I felt a sense of hope. Jamie had welcomed me with open arms, and the small town felt like a place where I could truly start over. Tomorrow would be another new day, full of possibilities. I closed my eyes, feeling content for the first time in years. This was the beginning of my new adventure, and I was ready to embrace it. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room. I stretched and felt a sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the usual rush of anxiety that accompanied my mornings. Today was a new day, and it promised new beginnings. I made my way downstairs, the smell of fresh coffee guiding me to the kitchen. Janie was there, already pouring himself a cup. Morning, Alex, he greeted with a smile. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in years, I replied, taking the cup he handed me. Thanks again for everything, Jamie. It really means a lot. Hey, what are friends for? Jamie said, clapping me on the back. So, what's the plan for today? I was thinking of exploring the town a bit, I said. Get to know the place. Sounds good. I've got some work to do at the community center, but why don't you come along? It's a good way to meet people. Sure, I'd like that. We finished our coffee and headed out. The town was even more charming in the daylight. Quaint houses lined the streets, each with well tended gardens and picket fences. People waved as we passed by, and I felt a growing sense of belonging. The community center was a bustling hub of activity. Jamie introduced me to a few people, and everyone was warm and welcoming. Alex, this is Margaret, Jamie said, introducing me to a middle aged woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She practically runs this place. Nice to meet you, Alex, Margaret said, shaking my hand. Jamie's told us a lot about you. All good things, I hope, I replied with a chuckle. Of course, she said, laughing. We're glad to have you here. If you need anything, just let me know. As the day went on, I helped Jamie with various tasks around the center. It felt good to be doing something meaningful, and the friendly faces around me made it even better. In the afternoon, Jamie and I took a break and sat outside on a bench. So, what do you think of the town so far? Jamie asked. It's wonderful, I said. I can see why you love it here. It's a special place, Jamie agreed, and the people make it even better. I can tell, I said, smiling. Everyone's been so welcoming. Jamie nodded. They're good folks, and they'll be glad to have you here. As we sat there, enjoying the sunshine, a familiar face approached. It was Sarah, the neighbor who had greeted me yesterday. Hey, Alex, how's it going? She asked, sitting down next to us. Pretty good, I said, just getting to know the town. That's great. There's a lot to love here, she said. And speaking of which, we're having a little get-together at my place tonight. Why don't you come? It'll be a good chance to meet more people. I looked at Jamie, who nodded encouragingly. Sure, I'd love to, I said. Perfect. Come by around 7, Sarah said, standing up. See you then. That evening, I found myself at Sarah's house, surrounded by laughter and friendly faces. It felt like a family gathering, even though I just met these people. Alex, over here. Sarah called, waving me over to a group of people chatting by the fire pit. Everyone, this is Alex. He's new in town. Welcome, Alex, the tourist, making room for me. As the night went on, I found myself opening up, sharing stories and laughing along with everyone else. It felt like I'd been part of this community for years, not just a couple of days. Later, as the party wound down, I found myself talking to Jamie by the fire. Thanks for bringing me here, Jamie, I said. I really needed this. I knew you'd fit right in, Jamie said, smiling. This is your home now, Alex. We're glad to have you. As I walked back to Jamie's house that night, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't known in years. The reunion with Jamie and the welcome from the community had been exactly what I needed. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face them. This was my new beginning, and I was determined to make the most of it. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and optimistic. The sense of belonging from the night before still lingered, and I was eager to start this new chapter of my life. Jamie had already left for the community center, but he left a note on the kitchen table. Morning, Alex. Feel free to join me at the center when you're ready. There's always something to do. Jamie. I smiled, appreciating his thoughtfulness. After a quick breakfast, I decided to take a walk around town before heading to the center. The streets were lively with people going about their day, and everyone I passed greeted me with a smile or a nod. As I walked, I found myself in front of a quaint little bakery. The smell of fresh bread and pastries was irresistible, so I decided to go in. The bell above the door jingled as I entered. Good morning. What can I get for you? The baker asked, her face lighting up with a warm smile. I'll take a coffee and one of those cinnamon rolls, I said, pointing to the delicious-looking pastries in the display case. Coming right up, she said, quickly preparing my order. You must be new in town. I'm Grace, by the way. Nice to meet you, Grace. I'm Alex, I said, taking my coffee and roll. Just moved here a few days ago. Well, welcome to the neighborhood, Alex. I hope you like it here, Grace said. Thanks, Grace. I already do, I replied, feeling more at home with every friendly encounter. After finishing my coffee and pastry, I made my way to the community center. The place was buzzing with activity, just like the day before. Jamie was in the middle of organizing some supplies when he spotted me. Hey, Alex. Glad you could make it, he said, waving me over. Morning, Jamie. What can I do to help? I asked, eager to contribute. We're setting up for a charity event this weekend. There are tables to set up and decorations to hang. Think you can handle that? Jamie asked with a grin. I'm on it, I said, rolling up my sleeves. As I worked, I met more of the townspeople. Each person had a story to tell, and they all seemed genuinely happy to have me there. It was a far cry from the impersonal interactions I'd grown used to in the city. Hey, Alex, Sarah called from across the room. Need a hand with those decorations? Sure, Sarah. I could use the help, I said, smiling as she joined me. We worked together, chatting about everything and nothing. It felt easy, natural. As we hung streamers and set up tables, I realized how much I enjoyed being part of something bigger than myself. So, what made you decide to move here? Sarah asked, tying a balloon to a chair. I needed a change, I said simply. My life in the city was, well, it wasn't fulfilling. Jamie's letter came at the right time, and I just took a leap of faith. Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. Sometimes a leap of faith is exactly what you need. By the end of the day, the community center was transformed. It looked festive and welcoming, ready for the upcoming event. I felt a deep sense of satisfaction as I looked around at what we accomplished. Great job, everyone, Jamie said, clapping his hands. We're all set for the weekend. Thank you for your hard work. As people started to leave, Jamie and I stayed behind to tidy up. Feels good, doesn't it? Jamie asked, wiping his hands on a rag. It really does, I said. I haven't felt this good in a long time. That's the power of community, Jamie said with a smile. You're part of something here, Alex, and we're glad to have you. That evening, as I walked back to Jamie's house, I felt a sense of contentment and purpose. This town, these people had given me a fresh start. I was no longer just existing, I was living. This was the new beginning I had longed for, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. Life in the small town was starting to feel like a dream. Every day was filled with meaningful work, new friendships, and a sense of community that I'd never experienced before. But, as with all dreams, there was an undercurrent of reality waiting to surface. One crisp morning, I walked into the community center and found Jamie talking quietly with Margaret. Their faces were serious, a stark contrast to the usual light-hearted banter I was used to seeing. Morning, Jamie. Morning, Margaret. I greeted them. Morning, Alex, Jamie said, forcing a smile. We were just discussing some issues with the community center. Everything okay? I asked, sensing something was off. Well, there's been some talk about the funds, Margaret said, her voice low. We're not sure where some of the money has gone. I frowned. What do you mean? We've noticed some discrepancies in the accounts, Jamie explained. It looks like some funds are missing. Missing? I repeated, my stomach sinking. How much? Quite a bit, Margaret admitted. We're still figuring out the exact amount, but it's enough to cause concern. As the day went on, the news weighed heavily on my mind. The community center was the heart of the town, and the idea that someone might be stealing from it was hard to believe. I decided to talk to Jamie about it after we finished our work for the day. Jamie, can we talk? I asked, approaching him as he locked up the center. Sure, Alex. What's on your mind? I'm worried about the missing funds, I said. Is there anything I can do to help? Jamie sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, Alex. It's complicated. We need to find out who's responsible, but we have to be careful. We don't want to accuse anyone without proof. Have you checked the records thoroughly? I asked. Yes, Margaret and I have been going through them. It's strange, there are no obvious signs of theft. It's like the money just vanished. Well, if you need any help, let me know. I'm here for you, I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I decided to do a little investigating on my own. I started by talking to some of the people who had been involved with the community center's finances. One afternoon, I found myself at Grace's bakery. She had always been friendly, and I hoped she might know something. Hi, Grace. Do you have a minute? I asked after ordering my usual coffee and cinnamon roll. Of course, Alex. What's up? I wanted to ask you about the community center funds, I said. Have you heard anything about the missing money? Grace's expression changed, and she looked around before leaning in closer. I've heard some whispers, but nothing concrete. People are saying it could be anyone. Do you think it's possible someone's been taking the money? I asked. Grace hesitated. I don't know, Alex. But if it's true, it would break my heart. This town means everything to us. I understand. Thanks, Grace. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. As I left the bakery, I bumped into Sarah. She was carrying a stack of books, and her face lit up when she saw me. Hey, Alex, what's going on? Hey, Sarah. Just trying to figure out what's happening with the community center funds. Yeah, I heard about that. It's so strange, she said, shifting the books in her arms. Do you think someone's stealing? I hope not, I said, but we need to find out. Well, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know, she said. Thanks, Sarah. I will. As the days went by, the mystery deepened. Jamie and Margaret were still at a loss, and the tension in the town was palpable. Everyone was on edge, wondering who could betray the community in such a way. One evening, Jamie invited me over for dinner. As we ate, he seemed distant, lost in thought. Jamie, are you okay? I asked. He sighed, putting down his fork. Alex, there's something I need to tell you. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, but I think I know who's responsible for the missing funds. My heart pounded. Who? Jamie looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness. It's Margaret. Margaret? I repeated, stunned. Are you sure? I found some discrepancies in the records she gave me, Jamie said. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is there. I sat back, trying to process the information. Margaret had always seemed so kind and dedicated. How could she do something like this? What are we going to do? I asked. We need to confront her, Jamie said, but we have to be careful. We don't want to cause a scene. The next day, Jamie and I met with Margaret at the community center. She looked nervous, as if she knew what was coming. Margaret, we need to talk, Jamie said, his voice firm but gentle. About what? She asked, trying to sound innocent. We found some discrepancies in the records, Jamie said, and they point to you. Margaret's face paled. I can explain, she stammered. Please do, I said, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. Margaret took a deep breath. I didn't mean for it to get this far. My husband lost his job, and we were struggling. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed, but it got out of hand. Why didn't you come to us for help? Jamie asked, his voice softening. I was ashamed, Margaret said, tears in her eyes. I didn't want anyone to know. We could have helped you, I said, but now. I'm so sorry, Margaret sobbed. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. Jamie sighed. We'll need to discuss this with the town council, but we'll try to find a way to fix this without tearing the community apart. As Margaret left, I felt a heavy weight lift from my shoulders. The truth was out, but the road to healing would be long. The town had been shaken, but with honesty and support, we could rebuild the trust that had been broken. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the day's events. Hidden truths had come to light, and though it was painful, it was also a chance for new beginnings. We had faced a difficult challenge, but we had done it together, and in that, there was hope for the future. The news about Margaret spread through the town quickly. Whispers and sideways glances followed her wherever she went. It was a difficult time for everyone, but Jamie and I knew the confrontation with the town council had to happen soon. The trust that held the community together needed to be rebuilt, and that started with facing the truth head-on. The town hall meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday evening. By the time Jamie and I arrived, the room was already filled with concerned faces. People were talking in hushed tones, the tension palpable. Are you ready for this? I asked Jamie as we walked in. He took a deep breath and nodded. We have to be. It's the only way to move forward. We took our seats at the front of the room. Margaret was already there, looking pale and anxious. The town council members sat in a row, their expressions serious. Mayor Thompson, a tall man with graying hair, stood and called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. We're here to discuss the recent discrepancies in the community center's funds. Jamie, would you like to start? Jamie stood up, his voice steady but tinged with sadness. Thank you, Mayor. As most of you know, we discovered that a significant amount of money was missing from the community center's accounts. After thorough investigation, we found that Margaret was responsible for these discrepancies. There was a collective gasp from the audience. People began whispering to each other, shock and disbelief clear on their faces. Margaret stood up, her hands trembling. I know what I did was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry. I never intended for it to get this far. My family was struggling, and I thought I could replace the money before anyone noticed. But I failed, and I betrayed your trust. Mayor Thompson looked at Margaret with a mixture of disappointment and compassion. Margaret, we appreciate your honesty, but this is a serious matter. The community needs to know how we will address this and ensure it doesn't happen again. A voice from the back of the room interrupted. Margaret, why didn't you ask for help? We would have supported you. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I was ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know how bad things were. I couldn't stay silent any longer. We need to remember that Margaret is part of our community. She made a mistake, but she's admitted it and is willing to make amends. We should find a way to help her and her family and also ensure that this never happens again. The room fell silent, and then Sarah stood up. Alex is right. We're a community. We help each other. Margaret, we forgive you, but there need to be steps to make sure our funds are safe. Jamie nodded. We can set up a system of checks and balances, maybe a committee to oversee the finances so this doesn't happen again. And we should help Margaret's family get back on their feet. Mayor Thompson looked around the room, seeing nods of agreement. Very well. We will form a finance committee and implement stricter oversight. Margaret, you will need to repay the money, but we will support you through this process. Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I promise I will make things right. As the meeting ended, people began to approach Margaret, offering words of support and forgiveness. It was a powerful reminder of the strength of our community. Later that night, Jamie and I sat on his porch, reflecting on the day's events. That went better than I expected, Jamie said, taking a sip of his coffee. Yeah, it did. People really came together, I replied. It's amazing what a community can do when they support each other. Jamie nodded. It is. And I'm glad you're here to be part of it, Alex. Me too, Jamie. Me too. As I sat there, looking out at the quiet, star-filled sky, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had faced a difficult truth, but we had done it together. And in that, we had found a way to move forward, stronger than before. The town felt different in the weeks following the confrontation. There was a sense of renewal in the air, as if everyone had collectively decided to turn the page and start fresh. The finance committee was formed quickly, and Jamie, Sarah, and a few others took on the responsibility of ensuring transparency and accountability. For Margaret, the road to redemption had begun. She was working hard to repay the funds and had found a part-time job at Grace's Bakery. The community had rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. It was a beautiful testament to the power of forgiveness and unity. One sunny morning, I found myself at the community center, helping Jamie with some repairs. We were fixing a broken fence when Sarah walked over, carrying a pitcher of lemonade. Thought you guys might need a break, she said, pouring us each a glass. Thanks, Sarah, Jamie said, wiping sweat from his brow. Perfect timing. I took a sip, savoring the refreshing taste. This is really good, Sarah. Thanks. So, how are things going? She asked, sitting down on the bench beside us. Pretty good, Jamie replied. We're almost done here. How about you? Sarah smiled. Busy as always, but it's a good kind of busy. Feels like we're all moving forward. Yeah, it does. I agree. The town feels different, in a good way. Sarah nodded. People are more connected now. We've learned a lot from what happened, and it's brought us closer together. Jamie looked thoughtful. It's amazing how something so difficult can lead to such positive change. As we finished our lemonade and got back to work, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. This town had given me a new life, and I was determined to give back as much as I could. A few days later, we held a community celebration at the center. It was a chance for everyone to come together, celebrate our achievements, and look towards the future. There was food, music, and laughter, everything that made our town special. Margaret stood up to speak, her voice strong and steady. I want to thank all of you for your support and forgiveness. I've made mistakes, but your kindness has given me the strength to make things right. I'm proud to be part of this community, and I will do everything I can to give back. The crowd applauded, and I saw tears in many eyes, including my own. It was a moment of healing and hope, a symbol of our collective resilience. After the celebration, Jamie and I sat on the steps of the community center, watching the sun set over the horizon. Hard to believe how much has changed, I said, leaning back on my elbows. Yeah, it is, Jamie agreed. But it's been a good change. For all of us. I feel like I've finally found my place, I said. This town, these people, it's everything I didn't know I was missing. Jamie smiled. We're lucky to have you, Alex. You've made a big difference here. Thanks, Jamie. That means a lot. As we sat there, enjoying the peace and quiet, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the moment I received Jamie's letter to the challenges we faced and the friendships we formed, I had grown in ways I never thought possible. Embracing change wasn't easy, but it had brought me to a place of fulfillment and belonging. This was my home now, and I was ready for whatever the future held. Life would always have its ups and downs, but with a community like ours, I knew we could face anything. Together, we had embraced change, and together, we would continue to grow and thrive. And as the first stars appeared in the evening sky, I felt a deep sense of peace. This was just the beginning of our story, and I couldn't wait to see what came next.